tax expenditures offered to individuals, organizations, and businesses in fiscal year 2008 was about $6.9 billion. $6.9 billion, that's with the B. That's why I can tell you, I get a lot of emails and people are saying, well, Ohio's just not doing anything to help business. And I'm certainly not going to say that we're perfect about everything that we do. We can certainly be better at workers' comp. We certainly should have addressed tax reductions much earlier, but we took a long time to do that. We really didn't bring about tax reform until 2005, 2005 rather. And by that time, a lot of businesses who had it with the taxes in Ohio had already left or were close to leaving. And for those who've stuck around, business people like Mr. Graham, we appreciate that. But now what we're doing is, the reality is when you go through tax reform, you then start to see the impact of the tax reform. So there's the phase-ins that are taking place, even a 21% phase-in reduction of the personal income tax. So the reality is that we have said that instead of halting any of those phase-ins that are taking place, we're going to continue to let them play out because the state needs to adjust to what's taking place. That's the problem often in state government, is that too often we say we're going to do something, we start to do it, and then we step back, and then we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and then things simply, it's hard to measure what the impact of it is. So the governor's position has been that he wants everything to take effect. We're not going to put a halt on it and then see what the total impact is going to be. But I wanted you to know that, by providing those tax expenditures, they amounted to $6.9 billion for 2008, $7.1 billion for fiscal year 2009. And then recently, the governor in his State of the State address and his proposal for the new budget would actually raise the amount to $7.4 billion in fiscal year 2010, and it would continue to increase to $7.7 billion in fiscal year 2011. So some people might make the argument that you shouldn't be providing even more tax breaks because you've already given tax breaks, and look at the boat we're in now. But we're continuing to provide the tax reductions that I think are needed so that we can continue to stimulate the economy. But that kind of gives you an overview of that. Also, there is some discussion in Columbus, however, about the possibility of some fees being increased. And obviously there's always a lot of debate about the difference between taxes and fees. I guess the general feeling is that a tax is something that everybody in this room is affected by, where a fee is not necessarily going to affect everybody in this room. An example would be elevator inspections. Those fees are going to go up. If you own an elevator in your building. If you have boilers that need to be inspected, those fees are going to go up. There is some talk about increasing the title fees on the cars, I think from about $15, the registration fees from $15 to I think about close to $20. But that hasn't been raised since 1993. So those fee changes will probably bring in about another $200 million for the state. The reality before this government stabilization and recovery funding came from the federal government was that we were looking at a little bit over $7 billion for a deficit. And even if we were to cut every single department across the board about 20%, we were still going to be looking at a little bit more than a $4 billion deficit. So it's important for you to know, and if you get a chance to do this tonight, take a look at it, or tomorrow, go to www.recovery.ohio.gov, www.recovery.ohio.gov. And that'll give you the latest update on what is taking place with the recovery initiative and the government stabilization, if you will, initiative. And also we've been contacting our local leaders, our local officials, so that they'll make sure that they submit their projects, as they've been doing, especially here in North Ridgeville. I can tell you folks, I only have called North Ridgeville once and it's done, so. But So everyone is submitting their projects, and as somebody who used to cover government as a reporter and somebody who's still fairly new to the legislature, just starting my third year now, that it's often said that making sausage is a sloppy process. Well, you haven't seen anything yet until you see the way that budgets are taken care of or bills are taken care of in Columbus. So now the interesting process is that all the local leaders are basically putting their projects into the system, and then we are asking them to prioritize those projects, and then we are going to see which projects we can actually fund. And how that funding determination is going to take place. Hey, Jeff, how are you? How that funding determination is going to take place is still being worked out. I'm a big believer that you should try to prioritize the projects and prioritize things based upon need. Often in government we get into the peanut butter approach, where we kind of spread the peanut butter right across the bread and everybody gets a little bit of peanut butter. And then unfortunately there are some who need more peanut butter than others, so somebody ends up being left shorthanded in the whole process. But so it remains to be seen how that breakdown is going to take place, whether it may be done on a county-by-county basis, whether it may be finished on a district-by-district basis, whether they'll look at it from a metropolitan planning organization, which is the NOACA, and Northeast Ohio Area-wide Coordinating Agency that kind of oversees a lot of the projects. Quite frankly, I think it would be best if we just got the money to the local levels and let the local decision makers make those decisions. But this is the way that we're making sausage right now. So we're going to try to make the best sausage possible. Those are some things that that I wanted to go over with you. I think we talked about the current financial situation. We talked a little bit about the tax credits. We talked about some possible fees being impacted. As far as local government, also, just want to let you know I had a conversation this week with the Municipal League, and I was basically telling them that I would like for them to try to identify ways in which they feel that the state could help now, even if it's not in a monetary form. How could we help? There are some things that recently we've imposed that were an unfunded mandate that maybe could just be deferred for a couple years. Are there some things that you'd like to be able to do at the local level, but you feel that the state government has tied your hands a little bit? And to try to identify those. So that discussion has taken place. Also, there's some early talk about, and you'll continue to hear a lot about it. You may have read in the Plain Dealer that during the last legislative session, there was an initiative being put forth to restructure Cuyahoga County government. And there is no question, because of the economic times, and quite frankly because of the feeling of and the perception of the general public that government is too big, that you're going to continue to see lots of talk about how to do things in a more cooperative fashion, in a more consolidated fashion, more efficient fashion, which is really important. There is some discussion in Columbus right now about entering into compacts with cities and counties. The devil's in the details, because the way it would work is if the counties and cities are able to demonstrate that they in fact are coming up with ways to work together more efficiently, then we would put together, I guess, a list of incentives, if you will. I haven't seen what those incentives look like yet, but what those incentives would look like if you're going to try to find ways to do things in a more efficient manner. That can be everything from more cooperative purchasing to sharing of equipment. The thing that we all know, and one of the things that we all know, especially for those in public service, is that there's the my backyard syndrome, and some of the consolidation talk certainly sounds good, but some folks may be concerned